Well, hi everyone and welcome back to Adam's Fishing. You join me in the back garden. I've been doing a bit of tinkering in the shed because I've been getting ready for my next fishing session, which is going to be something just a little bit different. I'm going to a lake that I've never fished before. It's a place called River Park Farm, which is in Hampshire. It's a little bit further than I normally go to fish, and it's a day ticket, which I don't do very often because I'm a member of a club, as you guys know who watch regularly. I absolutely cannot wait to get down to this lake though. My mate James has booked it all up for us. We're there for an overnight session, pretty much 24 hours, maybe a little bit less than 24 hours because both of us need to get away on the day after. But I'm really hoping that that it's a successful trip because the lake contains a heck of a stock of fish. There's a really good chance of catching a 20-pounder there. I don't want to talk it up too much and put the kiss of death on it, but there is a really good chance of a 20-pounder. There's even a chance, slightly slimmer chance, of a 30-pounder, hence the name of this video, my quest for a 30. Actually there is even talk of, word on the street is there's a 40-pounder in there as well. It's not a huge lake. I've got a little bit of information about it from just 5 or 10 minutes researching on the internet. Really easily done. I know roughly the depth of water that I'm fishing in front of. You have to pre-book, by the way, and we've booked side-by-side swims roughly in the middle of the lake for this one. We just took what we could get, to be honest. It's one of those waters which is heavily pressured all year round, every day, and it's pretty much booked up all the time. So we're going to be in and amongst a load of other anglers, but that's the way the water is there. You just sort of expect that. So yeah, I think from what I've seen, we've got about 6 foot of water in front of us. It's fairly uniform and fairly clean in terms of the lake bed, and that lends itself really well to my usual style of fishing, which is great because I didn't really want to try anything different on this session. I'm going to be going in there with my tried and tested solid PVA bags and of course my snowman rig, which I use pretty much all the time anyway, don't I? So my 3 rods behind me here, you can see that I've got out, they're de-tackled, if you like. They've got nothing on them because I stripped everything off after the end of my last session, in anticipation of just redoing everything, just freshening everything up and making sure that it's ready for the big day. So I've got about 3 or 4 days before I actually set off on my fishing trip, but just doing this prep in advance just keeps my finger on the fishing pulse, I suppose, which is really important to me because I hate to be away from the lake for too long or away from fishing related stuff for too long. So I'm going to tackle up these 3, ready for my trip to the lake. I think it's actually a 2-rod rule there, but I'm going to tackle up all 3 anyway so that I've got a backup plan if I should lose any kit or anything like that. Really hoping it pays off, really hoping I get one of those decent carp on the bank. The weather, although not due to be rainy, it is going to be cold, and of course that makes fishing for carp quite difficult sometimes, doesn't it? I'm not already getting my excuses in, by the way, but I'm just letting you know the situation. Yeah, it's going to be a cold one. I'm going to have to take my Bivvy heater with me, I think, seeing as we're there overnight. But yeah, can't wait to get cracking. I'm going to do some work on these, get them ready for the off. So hopefully next time I see you, it will be on the banks of River Park Farm. Looking forward to seeing you there. Well, hi guys and welcome to River Park Farm. I'm dead excited to be here. It's a lot further than I'd normally travel to come fishing, and I really hope that it's worth it. I'd love to show you a shot of the lake right now, but the sun is so bright over the lake that when I point the camera at it and start filming, you can't see anything at all, so it's pointless. The little clip that I've just shown you is just the stream or the river that actually feeds the lake, which I'm guessing is where this place gets its name from. It looks really good though, I must say. It looks like a really nice spot. It's not a big lake at all, it's actually quite small, and it is, as I expected it to be, full. There's bivvies all the way around. This place is booked up all the time, I guess. We've arrived a bit early. We're probably an hour earlier than we should be, and so I'm just in the car park now doing a little bit of filming. You probably see the bumper of a car behind me there, just to say hi and welcome you to this session, to this video, I suppose. So yeah, we can have a nice slow setup in terms of the barrows, and then we can push him round there at our leisure, because we've got a whole hour before we need to get bankside. I did manage to speak to one of the anglers who was just packing up his stuff as we arrived. He's been on for 48 hours and he did manage to land just one fish, so it's not fishing its head off, unfortunately, which is a shame. But you never know, things might change. Today we've got this bright sunshine, it's certainly warming things up a bit, that's for sure. So hopefully that will change our fortunes and the carp will switch on and start feeding properly. I really hope so anyway. It's a lot of effort to do something different like this, and I'm really hoping that it pays off. Anyway, I'm going to take my time, get the gear out of the car, load the barrow up, and the next time you see me, hopefully, I'll be on the bank showing you the swim.
Heads.
How are we going to do this?
Heads you get 11, tails I get 11.
Okay. Heads.
You get 11.
I don't know what that means, but okay, 11. All right, folks, well, behind me is the swim, which I suppose won, on the mighty coin toss. Of the two swims that we've got booked, probably wouldn't be my first choice, to be honest, but that said, it's probably a bit much of a muchness here. It's a bowl-shaped lake. It's not big. It's probably one of the smallest lakes I've fished, to be honest. A lot of pressure. I'm a little bit worried about it, but there's the swim behind me. Looks a nice, comfortable swim anyway. The fishery here provides all their own nets, slings, and unhooking cradles. So I'll be using their own stuff for this session. And I'm thinking of just popping my pod about here, fishing one off to my right hand side where there's a little overhanging tree, and one just maybe a few rod lengths out in front of me. There's no other obvious features that I can get to. There's an aerator out in the middle of the lake, which is an obvious hotspot, but the guy directly opposite me is casting there and firing bait out there, so I don't want to interfere with that or get tangled up with him, so I'm going to steer clear of that. So I've got 24 hours or 23 hours. Time to get some stuff sorted, start fishing. Well guys, Bivvy's up behind me, as you can see. Took a bit longer to get sorted than I'd hoped actually, because it's they're stony swims here, like gravel swims, and it was a real tough job getting those pegs in without using a hammer, because on a lake like this, or any lake really, I suppose you don't really want to be hammering pegs in. So it was a case of digging around and screwing them and standing on them, and eventually it's set up behind me anyway. It looks pretty good actually. Got my bed chair in there as well. Now I know some of you will be saying that's the last thing you should be doing, putting your bivvy up, and normally I totally agree, but this is a very pressured lake. There were anglers in this swim right up until the point that I came and moved in, so I don't think giving it a bit of a rest for half an hour, maybe even more, will do any harm. Next thing I'm going to do is set up my rod pod, work out where I'm going to position that, where my rods are going to be in the swim, and then start thinking about where those hook baits are going to be positioned. But rod pod's the next thing. Glad I brought the pod as well, because bank sticks, I think I would have really struggled here. What I've done with the pod as well is at strategic points I've marked it with blue electrical tape, which tells me exactly where I need to extend these various extending poles to, in order to be able to set it up more quickly and end up with something a bit more stable as well. Took me a bit of time in the back garden, but I think it's really worth it. I've tried them out and it works. So long as I extend these arms to where I've marked, then the whole thing just slots together much more easily. It's a bit less of a faff. Still is a bit of a faff though, so I'm not going to make you watch the whole thing. I'm going to get this set up and then work out where to position it in the swim. So, pod's in the swim. It's now time to start thinking about where those hook baits are going to end up. I've got a little overhanging tree off to my right hand side here, which you can just about see, which is pretty much the only discernible feature that I've got to work with. So what I think I'm going to do, pop some free offerings just in front of that tree, or maybe even under that tree, and I can literally lower the lead into position, hopefully. I'll have to have a little bit of a feel around there first, just to make sure that I'll actually be able to present a bait. The other one, I suspect, with nothing else to go for, I'm probably just going to aim pretty much straight in front of me, try and find a bit of clear bottom that I can present a rig on, and just fish, I don't know, 3-4 rod lengths out, nothing massive. I can't really cast a long way, because as you can see, there's anglers opposite me and they're casting halfway across the lake, so you know, I'm fairly limited. I'm still optimistic though. It feels good. Weather feels good. It's a really cool place. Nice atmosphere. Load of like-minded guys trying to catch a carp. Had a chat with a few of them on the way around. All really nice guys. So yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. It's doing something a bit different, something definitely out of my comfort zone. But I'm just hoping that I can put it together and show you guys a nice big carp. Well guys, just getting some bait off the barrow here. Not trying anything different or unusual today. It's a new lake, but I don't want to also be trying new tactics. So it's the tried and tested solid PVA bags in there, which are on pre-tied on PVA bag stems. I say pre-tied, that makes it sound like someone else did it. I tied them and I put them together, filled them up and made them, but I've put them on what we call PVA bag stems, which allows me to easily just pop them on my main line before a cast. I usually use Avid PVA bag stems for those. I ran out recently, couldn't get the Avid ones. I think they might have had a bit of a stock shortage. Ended up shopping around elsewhere, and I did find some which turned out cheaper, and they seem really good quality, from a company called Poltergeist Tackle, so worth having a look out for them as well. What I'm also fishing with in this bucket is, if I slosh it a bit, you might be able to hear, there's a lot of liquid in there because I've been soaking some Manila and coconut cream boilies in some lovely Manila liquid. So I nearly lost my camera then. So that's the plan bait wise. So one of my rigs is going to be the solid PVA bag. The other one is going to be one of my classic snowman rigs with a little mesh PVA bag slid down it to protect the hook. Time to get some rods out now. Well, actually, I'll finish getting these buckets popped on the side of the lake, and then I'll get the rods sorted. Right guys, time to start thinking about getting some rigs sorted. Packed an awful lot of stuff for just an overnighter. Don't know if you find you tend to do that as well, like overpack when you're really excited or looking forward to a session, because it's something a bit different or a bit new. You tend to overdo it, bring everything and the kitchen sink. I think I've kind of done that. But apart from making all of my gear a bit heavier, it's not impeding me too much. So in here, got a couple of leads, 2.5 ounce pair leads, my preference. I feel like they do a pretty good job of setting the hook. I hear lots of different sort of schools of thought on this, you know, light leads are just as good or better than, or really heavy leads are better than, and I suppose I've kind of plugged for somewhere in the middle, which might not always be the best thing, but it's been working out okay for me over the last couple of years. So I'm going to use these leads on my setups. One of them has got a lead clip on and some anti-tangle tubing, so I'm going to pop a lead on there and have a couple of casts around out in front of me. The other one is just a loop in the main line, a figure 8 loop knot and a loop in the main line ready to accept my solid PVA bag. That's probably going to be the one going under the tree, because I'm imagining there'll be some debris and stuff there, and I'll just have a little feel around and drag the lead around there just to check that it's going to be okay to present a rig on. So let's take these leads, clip them on, have a couple of casts. Well guys, as advertised online, does seem to be a pretty clean bottom to the lake here. Bit silty, not necessarily gravelly, but quite smooth, and not a lot of debris out there that I can find anyway. So I think I know where I'm fishing. One's out pretty much straight in front of me, and one's just off to my right hand side in the margin underneath the trees. Right, I'm going to sort out the one under the tree first because it's a quick win, and then I can take a little bit more time over rod number 2, which is going to be out in front of me, bit of an actual cast. This one, hopefully, will just be an underarm swing, and I can lower it down into position. Not even going to put any freebies around this one, at least not to start with. That little mouthful is hopefully going to be enough to tempt a passing carp. Alright guys, rod number 1 is in position. I've got the alarm on, I've got my receiver in my pocket. I'm only about 10 yards from the rod anyway, so a short dash if I should get any early action. I'm not expecting it, to be honest. I mean, as that guy said, who had been on for 48 hours, he had only managed to land 1 fish, so it's obviously not as easy as one would like. But hey, that's fishing, right? If it was that easy, they'd call it catching and not fishing in the first place. So rod number 2 is going to be on my snowman rig. It's a little bit more involved, as those of you who've watched before will well know. And it starts with grabbing a couple of rigs. I tend to always set up 2, maybe even more than 2, just so I'm not caught out in the dead of night trying to fiddle around with threading on boilies and PVA bags and stuff. In fact, with that very thing in mind, I'm going to take, do you know what, let's go nuts. I'm going to take 4 of these out of here, bait them up, thread on the little micro PVA mesh bags, pop them in the bucket, ready for easy access and use when I need them. So those of you who have watched before, oh, nearly fell over, will have seen these before. It's my my little snowman rig here. Size 7 micro barbed Nash Fang X hook, some quarter end trap semi stiff, which is just stripped just next to the hook, fairly longish hair which will accommodate the 2 baits that I use, which are like a 15mm bottom bait and a 12mm pop-up, and at this end I've just got an overhand loop and an anti-tangle sleeve. That's what hopefully will do the business on the rod that's going out in front of me. Let's get some baits out and start threading those on. So as I said, nothing out of the ordinary going on with baits for me today. In fact, I've deliberately only brought a very small selection of bait with me so that I'm not tempted to start chopping and changing. I've got some 15mm in there, are some Candy Nut Crush bottom baits. I've got some 12mm Manila boilies, Manila pop-ups I should say, to balance it out, make that snowman rig. I have tested it in the sink, it does balance out quite nicely. Might even have a little bit of footage of that I can slip in here in the video. And the whole lot is going to be dunked in this Manila glug, which has a really lovely flavour, or flavour, I haven't tasted it, really lovely smell. Bet it tastes quite good as well. But yeah, they're going to get dunked in there, so it's kind of a nutty cum fruity sort of mixture going on here. So I'm steering away from the fish meal side of things as we get in towards the colder weather.
not because I've really got any experience of that being good, bad or indifferent, but just because generally the advice that I've seen online and from the anglers who know a heck of a lot more than me is to switch off the fish meals as you go through the winter months, as the carp aren't quite so ravenous for them as they are when the water's warmer. Hope that's true anyway. I'm going to start getting these threaded on. So what I do, for those who don't know, take one of my bottom baits, pierce it with my boilie needle, thread it onto my rig, then take one of my little manila pop-ups, same again, thread it onto the needle, thread it onto the hair, and lastly I'll just pop a little boilie stop, or a hair stop if you prefer, in there, and the finished product is something a little bit like that. Caught me loads of fish in the past, let's hope it does again. Well, I'm finally fishing. It's taken me about an hour and a quarter to get everything just right and set up how I want it, but hopefully that's time well spent. Just potted out a couple of very small patch full of boilies over that rod that's out in front of me, which is my left hand rod on the snowman rig, and the one under the tree I've just left alone, which is just the contents of that solid PVA bag. A lot of pressure on the lake today, as I'm sure there is every day, so who knows how the fish are going to respond. Only time will tell. Looking around behind me, my swim is in disarray, so I need to tidy up, carry some stuff into the bivvy, and then settle in, wait and hope. I'm happy that they're set up and sort of how I want them to be, ready for the first few hours of darkness as that rolls in, as that's usually a really good time for getting a bite, isn't it? Just as it turns from day to night, that sort of twilight period is always a winner usually. So I'm keeping my fingers and toes crossed that it does the business today, and I'm able to catch one of these fish. I have, whilst I've been sat in the swim chilling out with James, just having a chat, seen the odd patch of bubbles, roughly the sort of distance from the bank that I'm fishing with my left hand rod, not necessarily right over where I'm fishing, but not too far away, not a million miles away. And James had a really big fish jump out right in front of his swim, and we saw the whole fish. It came right up to the tail, and it was a decent carp. So there are fish in and around the area, which is reassuring. It hasn't been fast and furious action on the lake, but there have been a couple of fish caught. In fact, one at either corner of the lake opposite us. The guys are fishing really tight to the margins, which they're able to do there, and they've both had a fish. From the looks of things, they weren't big uns, they were commons, and I would say they were probably near 10 pounds, but maybe not quite 10 pounds with one of them. So not monsters, and we know there are some monsters in here, but it is heartening to see people catching fish. Let's just hope that we can do the same. So I've got kind of the best of both worlds. I've got one rod out into open water, if you like, and one hugging the margins, well, nearly hugging the margins in front of that tree. So all we can do now is continue to hope. James and I have got our own little version of Ready Steady Cook going on out here in the dark. It's only 5 o'clock, but it's already pretty much pitch black. So I've got the lights on. James is cooking steak with potatoes with a herb dressing, which I think sounds very good indeed. I'm going to challenge that with a cheese toastie and some hash browns. Which one will taste best? Who knows? Sizzling away nicely there, mate. Bacon like this as well. Sounds like a plan. It's been there for months. What started life as something quite simple has now ended up being a bacon and cheese and tomato toastie with hash browns, and to top it off, nice dollop of brown sauce on the side. Now it looks good, but I must say, James's steak looks and smells really good. This will do me though, set me up for the evening ahead. Okay guys, well it's just coming up to 7 PM. Pitch black now, total darkness, and it's actually starting to get a wee bit chilly as well. Unfortunately, no action at all on the carp front. We've had a nice bit of dinner, sat out and had a chat, put the world to rights and had a beer. And even though it's only 7 PM, I'm thinking about kicking back, putting some Netflix on and having a chill out. Maybe even falling asleep already because I am shattered. It's been a tough week at work. Nice to have today off in order to come here. Just wish it had resulted in a fish already, but not yet. Although a chap's come and set up a couple of swims down from where James and I are fishing, and he's a regular here, and he said it does more fish in the middle of the night than any other time in his experience anyway. So hopefully it will live up to that reputation and do us a fish or two in the hours of darkness. That'd be brilliant. It's great to be out here though. It's been really nice sitting out in the evening gloom and having a chat and having a beer. There's probably 8 or 9 other anglers on the lake at the moment, which for a lake of this size is quite a lot of pressure on such a small water, to be honest. But hey, a couple of fish have come out. There's nothing to say that more won't, and there's nothing to say that they won't fall to one of my traps. I really hope so. That little solid PVA bag just off to my right hand side under that tree feels like it's got real potential, especially as everything settles down and you know, we all go a bit quiet and still now. Might just encourage the fish to come closer to the margins to have a feed. Plenty of small fish around, like silverfish jumping and that kind of thing. I've seen quite a lot of activity on the surface from smaller species. But apart from the very occasional carp show out in front of James, there hasn't been a great deal out in front of me. Might be able to hear the whine of a train in the background. We're right next to a train track. It's quite a busy train line, obviously, but it's not too off-putting. Great to be trying something different, and I just once again hope that it pays off this time. Oh, just heard a fish crash. Right, keep everything crossed for me. I'll let you know if I catch anything. Good morning everyone. Believe it or not, it is morning, even though it still seems quite dark. It's 7:10 and I'm sorry to report no fish at all. Total blank, and I need to be packed up and gone from this swim by 12 at the latest. So I've got three or 4 hours left, although I need to spend some of that packing all this gear away, of course. Yeah, very gutted, disappointed that it didn't happen last night. Not just me though, James also didn't catch anything. In fact, nor did anyone else on the lake at all, except for one guy in the corner nearest to the bungalow that you might have seen in the video there. He, I think, had 3 fish during the night, so whatever he's doing, he's obviously got it right, or that just happens to be where the carp wanted to feed on this occasion. But yeah, good for him. He definitely top rod, top rod on this night session for sure. But yeah, everyone else of the, wow, a couple more anglers, or 2 or 3 more anglers actually turned up after dark and set up, and now pretty much every swim on the lake is taken. There must be 12 bivvies up, 12 anglers all fishing, and of all of them it was just that one guy who was lucky enough to catch any, so he's done really well. And if I'd been a little bit closer, I would have tried to get a photograph or some video of the fish for you guys, just so you can see a fish in this video. Alas, I've got a feeling it's not going to be the case, but I'm not giving up yet. I re-baited and recast both rods just before it got light again. Well, a little bit before that actually. It was probably 6 AM, so it was still pretty dark, but I wanted to have confidence in my rigs and hook baits ready for when it started to transition from darkness to light, because that's also a good time to get a bite, isn't it? Usually, not this time obviously. Anyway, I'm rambling. I need a cup of coffee. I didn't sleep well at all, so a good strong cup of coffee, nice bacon sandwich, and I reckon that'll set me up ready for the big pack up. Rats.
Well guys, as you can see, I'm back home, and you know what that means. We didn't catch any fish at all, I'm afraid. Absolute disaster. I'm not sure it comes across in the video enough, but I'm absolutely gutted about that, to be honest with you. James and I have been talking it up for a few weeks, looking at the catch shots on the River Farm website, and sort of thinking that we had a really good shot at one. And maybe we did, and maybe we just blew it, but we didn't catch any, I'm afraid. It was busy as expected. I think there's maybe 12 or maybe 14 swims altogether around that relatively small lake, and 12 of them were full, which means 24 lines in the water, which is a lot of pressure, isn't it? And I guess the fish in there have been fished for a lot and are quite wary. So not the easy option for catching a 30 by any means. Although, are there any easy options for catching a 30? I'm not really sure. I'm not giving up. We're going to keep trying, or I'm going to keep trying. Whether James can make it along or not, it'd be really good if he can. But there's a couple of other waters, not quite so far for me, which contain 30-pound carp. So wherever they are, there's a chance, isn't there? So I'm going to keep trying. I wouldn't normally bore you and upload a video like this where I don't catch anything, but I think my quest for a 30 is not going to be an overnight success. I think I'm going to have to put in the time and effort and do a few sessions, more than a few sessions, if I'm going to stand any chance of making it a reality. Actually, as we were packing up from our session, James got a chance to have a few words with the guy who had caught a couple in the night. I think he caught 3 in the night. And he was just coming to the end of a 72-hour session, and for his first 48 hours he hadn't caught anything at all, so hats off to him. He put in the effort, he persevered, and he caught a few fish. I can't recall how big the biggest one was. It wasn't quite 20 pounds, I don't think. I think it might be an 18 pounder or something like that. So none of the big uns, none of the 30s came out, which is obviously what I was hoping for. But frankly, I would have been dead chuffed with any fish at all on that session. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for joining me and watching this session, and thanks so much for your support on YouTube as well. I do really appreciate it. I think I've got 4,500 subscribers now, which is just nuts. So yeah, I'm really pleased. So if you do enjoy the videos, well, maybe you didn't this one so much because I didn't catch anything, but if you do enjoy the videos, then please do give me a like and subscribe, and it might just push me over that 5,000 subs barrier, which would be a heck of a milestone, wouldn't it? So I'm going to say cheerio for now, and hopefully I will see you guys back on the bank, whether it's on another quest for a 30 or just a session fishing, I don't know. But hopefully I'll catch you back on the bank again really soon. Bye for now.